Little by little the pain stopped, and Pinocchio thought no more of the eel. Or if he thought of it, it was only to resolve never to touch it again, not even with a stick. Chapter 10. "Good evening, Messrs. Cetaceans," said Pinocchio, bowing low to Tercio and Marsavino as soon as he saw them coming. "Why, where did you learn our family name?" "You called us fish once upon a time. Globicephalus told me. I know now the difference between a fish and a cetacean. You have taken lessons from a servant. Why, I thought you were ashamed even to be seen walking with one." Pinocchio was silent. He was beginning to learn manners. "Well, Pinocchio, tomorrow morning you are to come with us to visit my friend Beluga. You may walk around a little now with Marsavino, but after your walk you are to go to sleep. I want you up early tomorrow." While the marionette was listening to Tercio, he had noticed a bright red eel lying quietly among some weeds. The mood for mischief again seized him. He smiled to himself. Approaching Marsavino, he pulled him gently by the fin and said to him smilingly, "Come with me. I want to show you something. Look in those weeds. There is a beautiful electrical machine there." "An electrical machine?" Marsavino was full of interest. "Where is it? Stick your nose among the weeds and you will see it." The dolphin did as he was told. Pinocchio laughed up his sleeve and very quietly hid himself behind some friendly rocks. "Oh!" suddenly screamed Marsavino, leaping backward. "An electrical machine!" "Why, it is an electric eel, you mean, boy." "That was an unkind joke, Pinocchio." "Yes, that mischief-maker, seeing the eel again, thought he would play a trick on the poor dolphin." Tercio, hearing the screams, had come nearer. "The electric eel! You poor boy, how you must suffer!" Luckily the eel was asleep, so I had no great shock. Yes, luckily. When it is asleep, it does not hurt much. "But how did you ever get near him? Why, Pinocchio?" And then he stopped. Why should he tell? But he was too late. "Oh, that, Pinocchio." "Well, remember, Marionette, usually one gets paid in his own coin. Now you look tired. Stop stretching yourself and go to sleep." "Very well, Mr. Tercio," came meekly from Pinocchio. "But may I ask a favor of you?" "What is it?" "Seeing that we are near the island, may I sleep there tonight? I found a small cave there this morning, and it looked comfortable. May I, Mr. Tercio?" "Why, surely, my boy. Thank you." "But will you please sleep near? I should feel better if I knew you were near." "Very well, my lion tamer." Globicephalus then took Pinocchio on his back and rose with him to the surface. "I wonder what those two dolphins are talking about," he thought, seeing Tercio and Marsavino whispering together. Tercio seemed little pleased. Marsavino was begging for something. Finally the good old dolphin smiled an unwilling "yes" to his pupil. "It may teach him a lesson," Pinocchio heard Tercio say, and he wondered at the words. Soon he forgot all about them. "Good night," he called, jumping on land and disappearing into the cave. He gathered some seaweed and made a soft bed. "This is very good," he said, lying down, but soon he found out that he could not sleep. He could not understand why. He was so tired after 2 nights of sleeplessness, but still his eyes would not close. Everything around him was so quiet that he began to be frightened. He got up and looked out on the sea. It was as black as ink. "Oh, pitch black! How horrible the sea is at night," grumbled the marionette. No sooner were the words out of his mouth than he wished them in again. As if the waves had taken offense at his remark, they were suddenly turned into fire. It seemed as if millions of stars had fallen into the sea. Pinocchio ran out of the cave. As far as eye could reach, there was nothing but this fiery sea. The bright, shiny water rose and fell in silvery waves. Millions of sparks were thrown up into the air and fell back again. "Oh, the sea is on fire!" shouted Pinocchio, and that "oh, oh, 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 oh" was the longest that had as yet come from his mouth. And then Mr. Tercio tells me he is not a wizard. He could hardly be blamed, poor ignorant little marionette. That scene certainly belonged more to fairyland than to real life. It was the phosphorescence of the sea that attracted Pinocchio's attention. Sometimes this is so wonderfully beautiful that seen once, it can never be forgotten. Our wooden hero was so awestruck at first that he could only stand and gaze at it. Finally he gathered courage and went nearer and nearer the water. And when a wave touched his feet, he jumped back for fear of being burned, but he found the water was just as cool as before. Why, this fire does not burn! How queer! What can it be? In his ignorance he could not answer, but I shall answer for him. The phosphorescence of the sea is produced by millions of very tiny zoophytes, so small that they cannot be seen with the naked eye. These minute zoophytes have a sheen like fireflies. When they light up all together, they make the ocean look like a sea of molten gold. While Pinocchio was still gazing, the fire went out just as quickly as it had come. The night was again as dark as ink. This was not much to the marionette's taste, so he started back to his cave. Glancing toward the sea again, it seemed to him that the dolphins were not in the same place. I hope I'll be able to sleep now, he thought. I am so tired. But he had hardly reached the mouth of the cave when, with a shriek, he turned and fled. Why? An awful, horrible monster was hanging at the mouth of the cave. It was more than a yard long, and with a mouth like an oven. On its head were 2 long horns, and its body was shining in the night, frightful in its shape and color. Can you imagine Pinocchio's fright? "A dragon!" he shrieked. "A dragon in my cave! Help! Help!" Running madly toward the sea, he never stopped until he reached the dolphins. "Globicephalus, for pity's sake! Tercio, Marsavino! Help! Wake up! A demon is in my cave. Yes, come and see. His mouth wide open, ready to eat me up. If only you could see the size of his horns!" But when the dolphins awoke and realized what was happening, they only laughed and laughed. Pinocchio could not understand. He looked from one to the other. Finally he said, "Well, I don't see anything so funny. What is it? Look at the brave boy. Look, look!" called Marsavino, bursting with laughter. "I thought you threw stones into a lion's mouth," shouted Globicephalus, making fun of the poor fellow. "Lions are one thing, demons another," explained Pinocchio, almost crying with shame. "But what demons are you talking about, anyway?" asked Tercio. "Come, and you will see." When they reached the cave, there was the dragon still hanging. His eyes were still glaring, his mouth still wide, his body still shining in the night. "BRRRR" came from our shivering hero. "Look at it well, you foolish boy. What do you think of it? A demon. Where are its eyes? Doesn't it look more like a mere fish?" "Yes, well?" asked Pinocchio, who didn't know what to think. "Well, it is a fish. Sometimes it is called fishing frog, sometimes goosefish, and sometimes sea devil from its horrible looks. Marsavino has just paid you back for your joke. He took the dry skin of this fish, filled it with water, and inside of it put 2 sunfishes. When you thought he was asleep, he was hanging it up. It has given you a chance to show us how brave you are." Pinocchio felt very small. Slowly he approached the monster and looked it over. How foolish he had been. "What a horrible mouth you have, my fish," he said. "And what is this horn doing at the top of your head?" "That helps him to get his dinner," explained Tercio. "Other fish are caught on the horns, and the frog has nothing to do but eat them." "Well, I was frightened," admitted the marionette soberly. "We have lost enough sleep by this time." "To bed, all of you," ordered Tercio. This time Pinocchio did not have to wait long for sleep to come. He was soon dreaming about sharks, flying machines, sea devils, and electric eels. Chapter 11. "Pinocchio! Pinocchio! Make haste! Make haste!" called Marsavino the next morning. "Very well," sleepily came the answer. But why must I get up so early? Do you call 10 o'clock early, you lazy boy? 10 o'clock! Pinocchio could hardly believe his ears. Yes, and in 1 hour we must be with the white whale. He is expecting us for dinner, so make haste, as we have no time to lose. Pinocchio, hearing about dinner, was ready in no time. He was soon on Tercio's back, waiting for the dolphin to start. Before long, they were on their way. After a short trip around the island, they came to a beautiful little nook in the rocks. Here lived Beluga, the white whale. Dinner was ready, and all sat down around the table. And what do you think the table was? An immense flounder. Yes, don't laugh, it is true. The flounder is of the same family as the sole. All these fish have a thin, flat body. As they have to lie on the mud most of the time, they can only look upwards. So they have both eyes on the upper side of the head. On Beluga's table were all kinds of fish, large ones, small ones, flat ones, and round ones. Pinocchio ate of everything. When he had finished, nothing was left on his plate but a couple of eyes and a few tails. Afterward, noticing that his plate was also a fish, he thought it would be a good idea to eat that too. He had eaten so much, though, that he couldn't, so he put it into his pocket. It will do for my breakfast, he thought. Poor Tercio was much ashamed of the marionette, and Marcevino was not less so. If they had only known that Pinocchio was so rude as to take things from the table and put them into his pocket, they would never have invited him to dinner. Still, they did not say a word. Run along now, children. Mr. Beluga and I must talk about business. We cannot have you around. The two boys left the dolphins together and went off. While enjoying themselves looking around, Marcevino picked up something which looked like a chain. It was made of small round balls, all alike and transparent. He handed it to Pinocchio. "Tell me," he said, "do you know what this is?" "Why, yes, it is a bead chain." "It is easy enough to know that." "Are you sure?" "Yes, of course. I have seen them many times around little girls' necks." "And if I told you that they are eggs?" "Eggs," murmured Pinocchio. "Eggs." "This thing?" "Yes, sir. That is what they really are, the eggs of a halibut. It is a bad habit, Pinocchio, to make believe you know a thing when you do not." "I am afraid I am not going to be your friend." "Not my friend?" came from the poor shamefaced marionette. "No." "Mr. Tercio has always told me to keep away from boys who tell lies, I suppose you want to say," finished Pinocchio. "I was told to go with boys who are polite," continued Marcevino. "And instead I even take the plates away with me when I am invited to dinner," said Pinocchio. "I was told to make friends with educated children. And yes, I might as well confess it, I have hardly ever seen the inside of a classroom in my life. Well, Marcevino, I will try to make myself your friend." "Will you try me again?" "Very well, I will. Now let us return." The dolphins were still talking busily when the boys came up to them. They seemed very much in earnest. "Here we are, father," called Marcevino. "At last. Where have you been? We have important things to say to you. Come here, both of you. What is it? We are all ears." "My friend Beluga has been telling me that while I have been away from home, I have lost much money. He has told me of a great treasure that is to be found in an old ship far away from here. As I need it very much just now, I do wish I could get hold of it." "Well," answered Marcevino, "why can't we go for it?" "Because it is miles and miles away. Not only that, but we should have to travel as far up as the polar seas and into the great oceans. We could never do it. You see, I am getting old. I could hardly attempt to cross those icy waters. Still, I need the money so much that I am afraid I shall have to try the journey." "Why couldn't Globicephalus and I go instead of you, father?" asked Marcevino. "And I also," timidly added Pinocchio. "Globicephalus is too old. And as for you two, my dear boys, you do not know what you are saying. Do you know that for months and months the polar seas are in darkness? That the sun is seen only in the spring and summer? I know, but it is now winter, and we should reach those seas just at the right time. We should be back before the fall. And are you not afraid of the cold? It will not be cold. I will swim deep in the water, and there the water will be warm. I will come to the surface only long enough to breathe. What about the ice? What about those monsters of the seas, the whales, the sharks, the narwhals? You need the treasure. I have made up my mind to go, answered Marsavino firmly. You might escape all the dangers I mentioned, my boy, and reach the ship, but how could you ever get hold of the gold inside? I might tear a hole in the ship with my strong tail, began Marsavino. A ship a block long and all made of iron. It is of no use, my boy. The young dolphin was silent. How could he get into the ship? He thought and thought, but he could find no answer. May I go too? Here began Pinocchio. You? Asked Tercio and Marsavino at the same time.
Yes, I. Why not?
If Marsavino cannot get into the ship because he is too big, I am so small I can get into any hole, continued the marionette. That isn't a bad idea, is it, father? No, but do you really feel courageous enough, you two, to undertake such a journey? We'll do our best, answered Marsavino. Well then, all right. Let us return to Globicephalus, and then you will get ready to start. Beluga, I will be with you again soon. I might as well wait here with you for Marsavino and Pinocchio to return. After saying goodbye to Beluga, the young dolphin followed Tercio, who seemed in haste to get to Globicephalus. Sitting on the dolphin's back, Pinocchio was thinking how good he had been in offering to go with Marsavino, but he soon forgot this in another surprise. In front of him, not far away, he saw a number of animals rise out of the sea. They rose, shook their colored wings gaily, and then fell back again into the water. No sooner had they disappeared than others came, and then again others. How beautiful they were! Red, blue, and green, and shining brightly in the sun. Birds in the sea. Oh, they will drown, screamed Pinocchio. Oh, no, these birds will not drown. They live in the sea, my boy. They are called flying fish, explained Tercio. When shall I stop hearing news? Wondered Pinocchio. So there are also birds in the sea. Almost birds, but not quite. These fish have very strong fins, and with them they can leap very high. As you see, they even leap out of the water. Why do they do this, do you think? Because they want to escape from the large fish, which follow them to eat them. Pinocchio had nothing to say. Meanwhile, the three friends had reached the place where Globicephalus was waiting. Tercio told him in a few words what Marsavino and Pinocchio had planned to do to help him. Very soon the two boys were ready to start. Well, goodbye, boys, said Tercio after telling them how to reach the ship. I will no longer try to stop you from going. Only be careful. Keep to yourselves, and you will meet with little trouble. Do not stop on your way. Hasten back, or I shall be worried. Above all, never get out of the water. The tide might go out, and you, Marsavino, would be in great danger. Marsavino and Pinocchio listened carefully, and then, with a cheerful goodbye, they were off. A few hours later, Tercio and Globicephalus were with Beluga, and Marsavino and Pinocchio were speeding away towards the great oceans, treasure hunting. Chapter 12. Marsavino and Pinocchio traveled swiftly. They passed a strait, crossed a canal, left beautiful lands behind them, and at last came out fearlessly into the great ocean. They never stopped. When the moon shone, they traveled on the surface of the water. If the sky was dark and gloomy, the dolphin plunged deep into the sea. There the two friends had plenty of light. Great Medusa and sunfishes made the water light and bright. Very often, too, the wonderful phosphorescence of the sea aided them in seeing their way. Pinocchio felt satisfied when Marsavino explained the cause of this phosphorescence to him. At first, though, he could hardly believe his ears. The journey was very peaceful, and nothing came to trouble the two little heroes.
What is that dark blue streak there, Marsavino?
Asked Pinocchio one day. He was pointing out a wide band of dark blue water which stood out distinctly from the lighter green of the ocean.
That.
Oh, that is the Gulf Stream, answered Marsavino. The Gulf Stream? What are you talking about? A stream running in the ocean, water running in water. Yes, of course it is all water. But there is a difference between ocean water and Gulf Stream water. The first, in general, is quiet. The second is moving. That stream is just like a river flowing between two valleys. The waters of the two never mix. If you try, you will find that the ocean is much the colder of the two. But what is the use of it? Why, it is of great use. This stream carries warmth to the cold regions of the north. It cools the hot countries of the tropics. Without this saving current, life would not be pleasant in many countries. "Hurrah for the river in the middle of the sea, then!" shouted Pinocchio. He had understood little, so he thought it better not to speak further on the subject. Towards noon of the same day, the sea began to be filled with herrings. They were on all sides. Our two travelers were surrounded. Pinocchio enjoyed being with the silvery animals. Soon, however, there were so many that Marsavino found it hard to move. Still, the kind little fellow, seeing that Pinocchio was enjoying himself, did not try to get away. After a while, however, the herrings became so numerous that the ocean looked like a sea of silver, not of water. Pinocchio and the dolphin were being pushed and shoved around without mercy.
I am being killed, stifled,
whispered Pinocchio.
Yes,
he whispered. If he had opened his mouth, a herring could easily have slipped into it. This might not have been very pleasant. Marsavino finally saw that the herring had become as thick as a stone wall. So with a few strong strokes of his tail, he made his way to the surface of the water.
"Ah!
Now I can breathe!" exclaimed Pinocchio. "In that fishy world I thought I should die." As night had come, and as it was very dark, our friends began to think of sleep. Anyway, even if they had tried to move, they could hardly have passed through that multitude. Just as the sun rose, Pinocchio opened his eyes. He had had a very good sleep on the back of his swimming horse. Looking around, he could not help crying out in surprise, "Marsavino!" "Wake up!" he called. "Just look! Yesterday we were swimming in a sea of silver. Today we are floating in milk." It was really the truth. No sign of herrings was left. But as far as eye could reach, one could see only a thick, heavy liquid as white as milk.
Oh, how splendid!"
cried Pinocchio. "Now I can have as much milk as I want. It looks good." Marsavino had awakened, but he never said a word. He wanted to see what Pinocchio would do. The marionette, thinking himself right, bent over and took a long drink of milk, as he thought. But he had no sooner had a taste than he made a wry face. "Why, it is salty." "Of course it is. Is this the first time you have heard of the sea being salt? But this is not water. Look how white it is. It looks like milk. Do you know why it is so? The water looks white because of the eggs left in it by the herrings of yesterday." "Eggs? But there must be thousands of them. Yes, and millions. But the sea will soon be full of herrings then." "No fear of that, Pinocchio. Think of the many large fish that are in the sea. They live on these eggs and on small fishes. Why, they can, and they do swallow hundreds of eggs at a time. The sea is big enough to hold all its fish and more. You don't think we are crowded, do you? Last night we certainly were. One night is not every night. You see, herrings travel in great numbers, and we happened to meet a school of them." "Oh, they go to school, do they? Well, I never before thought a fish had to go to school too," mumbled Pinocchio to himself. After traveling a long time through the milky sea, the two travelers at last came out of it. Soon after, a long, sharp, flat blade rose suddenly out of the water. It looked like a sword, and Pinocchio, of course, thought it was one. "What have we here?" he asked. "A soldier battling in the sea? And is that thing his sword?" "You can hardly be blamed for thinking it a sword." "It looks very much like one," said Marcevino. "It is the long upper jaw of a fish, and from this it receives its name, swordfish. With this weapon, as it is very strong, the fish can defend himself against much larger animals. I hope he won't come near us." Luckily for the two friends, he did not. The sword disappeared into the sea, and the travelers continued their journey. "I must dive now to see where we are," said Marcevino, and soon Pinocchio found himself at the bottom of the sea. Curious as ever, the marionette looked around, peering here and peering there. Seeing some cup-like objects hanging on the rocks, he put out his hands for them. They looked very soft and were full of holes. But as soon as Pinocchio touched them, the holes disappeared, and the cups clung tightly to the rocks. "Oh, excuse me," begged Pinocchio. "I thought you were sponges." "And what are they, if not that?" laughingly asked Marcevino. "But they move just as if they were alive." "And is not the sponge an animal? Really, do you mean it?" "Why, yes. The sponge is not only one animal, but a number of animals living together. And what do you think hides in that cup-like sponge you see there to live a quiet, happy life in it?" "What?" "The pearl oyster. Honestly." "Oh, do you think I could get some?" "I know how precious pearls are. Why, I could make myself rich. I could buy houses and horses and automobiles and—" "Oh! Oh!" "Oh," and Pinocchio started to dance a jig on the sandy floor. Marcevino was laughing. "You may try, you may have luck." Pinocchio did not have to be told twice. He searched and searched every sponge he could lay his hands on. As a result, he found a great many shells. "And what now?" he asked. "Now you must open them to see if any pearls are inside." "What is the use of opening them? You said these were all pearl oysters. I'll carry them and open them later." "But many of them may have no pearls at all. You see," continued Marcevino, opening a shell, "this one has none. But do you see this coating of many colors on the inside of the shell? That is a substance which comes from the body of the mollusk. It is called mother of pearl. When the oyster opens its shell, a grain of sand may get into it. The oyster does not like this, as the stone hurts her, but she can't throw it out. So she covers it up with this substance from her body. When the little stone is all covered up, we have a lovely pearl." "Who would ever have thought such a thing possible?" thought Pinocchio, getting to work. He soon had a large number of oysters, but when he opened them he found only a few small balls. "Come here, Pinocchio. You may have better luck in this corner," and Marcevino led the way to a nook in the rocks. "Look in there." Again Pinocchio searched, and soon a great many shells lay at his feet ready to be opened. Without mercy he went at them, tearing and pulling the poor little creatures from their homes. His search finished, he threw them aside. The sand was soon covered with the dead and the dying. "Poor little beings," observed Marcevino. "After they have given you their pearls, is that the way to treat them? Could you not be more careful?" Pinocchio had a kind soul. He was only thoughtless, so he went to work and tried to undo the wrong he had done. Those oysters which were only slightly hurt he put back into their shells, while he ate the others, and so ended their sufferings. This work finished, he went on with his search for pearls. In a short time he had a small pile of beautiful pearls. Some were large, some small, some globular, and others shaped like drops of water. In color, too, they were different. Almost all were white, some faintly pink, a few grayish, and one was all black. "Well, Pinocchio, you have enough. With them you will be as rich as the King of China. Come now, We must go on with our journey. But these pearls, where shall I put them? I wish I had a bag or a box. It will not be so hard to find that. Let's look around." The dolphin swam around. He did not stay away long. Soon he came back holding a small object out to Pinocchio. It was a little cubical body and seemed like a strange-looking box. "Here is the box, my friend," he called. "Well, what is this?" asked Pinocchio, looking at the object. It was hard and dark and reminded him of the shell which had saved his life. That was a fish. A fish? That box? Exactly. "This is only its shell, but once a fish lived in it. It is called the sea urchin. That box you have there helps him to defend himself. Do you notice how hard it is? Well, the sea is certainly a wonderful place. Once upon a time I hated it. Now I should like to be a fish so as to live in it always." Chapter 13. The journey was progressing rapidly. Blue skies and green countries had disappeared. Gone were the many-colored fish. Sea and sky were of a dark gray color. Why all this? Because our two friends had reached the cold north, where for so many months no sun shines. Luckily, though, spring had begun. The sun showed itself for a while every day. And every day it showed itself a little longer. In the summer it would be there even at midnight. The cold was very great. Pinocchio had a fur suit which Tercio had given him, but still he was almost freezing. Marcovino also suffered. "It will be better for us if we dive deep into the sea," he observed. "We shall find it warmer there."
Please wait a while, begged Pinocchio. I want to see that island far away.
It was as white as snow and seemed almost to touch the sky. "Oh, you want to see that island," repeated Marcovino, chuckling to himself. "Very well. Yes, it does look queer, doesn't it? I wonder if there are people on it. Perhaps. We shall see." It seemed as if the island had heard Pinocchio speak. Strange to say, it was coming to meet the dolphin and his friend, and with it were two others.
Look, look, shouted Pinocchio. The island's at the pole walk. This is fun.
"Yes, they are taking a walk, as you see," answered Marcovino, who was enjoying himself too. "But if they come nearer, our journey will end right here." He had not finished speaking when a terrific noise was heard. The sound was deafening. Pinocchio found himself thrown from his horse into the water. When he opened his eyes, he always closed them when he was frightened. No islands were to be seen. "Marcovino! Marcovino! Help!" "Help!" he cried, fearing he had lost his friend. "Here I am, come!" Swiftly the marionette swam to the dolphin and again climbed on his back. "Will you please tell me what happened to those islands, or are we in fairyland? I never knew lands could disappear in a minute like that. Those were not islands, my dear Pinocchio. They were icebergs. These great mountains of ice, when they come against each other, are broken into bits. See, all that is left of them are pieces of ice." And Marcovino pointed to ice which was floating on the sea. The next day Pinocchio had another surprise. In front of him, as far as he could see, was a city of ice. Everything was flat, everything was white. Immense landscapes, snowy white, met his eye wherever he turned. Mountains of ice could be seen in the distance, and, wonderful to see, the ice was so clear and transparent that it looked like glass. When the sun shone on it, it sparkled and showed all the colors of the rainbow. Pinocchio thought himself in fairyland. But as he was looking, a strong wind rose suddenly, and then the icebergs fell and broke with deafening noise. Finally, Marcovino thought it best to swim far under water. He was afraid of losing his life in the midst of all those icebergs. 2 days later, the two boys rounded the southern point of Greenland. On the sandy shore of this continent could be seen a large number of animals. They had round, clumsy bodies, each having a small head with 2 small, bright eyes. Where we have arms, they had what looked like very strong fins. These animals were seals. Their bodies were covered with reddish-brown fur. Lying on the sand, they were enjoying the warmth of the sun. The young ones were playing with one another and enjoying themselves too. Pinocchio paid little attention to them, but suddenly out of the water came another band. The newcomers were somewhat different from the seals, but they belonged to the same family. Their fur was almost black, not brown, and their heads were larger. They were walruses. From their mouths 2 long, thick ivory teeth protruded. They looked very fierce, and soon they showed their fierceness. Seeing that the beach was occupied and wanting it for themselves, they started to fight for it. The seals fought very bravely, but what could they do against those terrible teeth? The poor wounded beasts struggled and kept up cries of "Pa! Pa! 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 Pa!" "They are calling Papa." "I never thought fish could talk," said Pinocchio. "First of all, seals are not fish, but mammals. And then there are some fish which do produce sounds. Tunnies, when out of the water, cry like children. Some poulpes, when caught, groan. Others make a sound like a whistle." "I am ready to believe anything," Pinocchio said very weakly. "But what is a poulpe?" "Oh, that is another name for the octopus or devilfish," was the reply. The fight continued, but the seals were soon conquered. The victorious walruses were not to enjoy their victory, however. While the fight was still waging, some fishermen had quietly come up to the field of battle. Before long, many of the combatants lay dead and were carried away into boats. The few that were left forgot the fight and were happy enough to escape into the water. Chapter 14. The boys traveled 2 weeks longer, and at last Marcevino thought himself near his destination. So he dived into the water to a great depth. After a while, as he sank deeper and deeper into the sea, Pinocchio became frightened. They were down so far that no light from the sun could reach them. "Where are you carrying me to, my dear?" he asked. "If we go any farther, we cannot possibly live. How could we, with this immense amount of water over us?" "We'll be all right, my boy, never fear. If little fish like that can live here, why, so can we." Marcevino was pointing to many horrible dark objects which were swimming around him. They had a round head, great black bodies, no eyes, and from their heads a long thread moved about in the water. At the end of the threads were small lights.
"What ugly things," said Pinocchio.
"What are they, and why do they have those small lights on their heads?" "If you look closely, you will see that those little beings have no eyes, so they depend on these lights for their food. Other animals are drawn to the lights. When they are near enough, these animals feel them. Then they are seized and eaten."
"The sea is wonderful," nodded Pinocchio drowsily. "But don't you think that we might take some sleep? I am very tired."
"Very well," said Marcevino. Pinocchio threw himself on the sand, and in a few minutes both friends were asleep. The next morning, bright and early, they were again ready to start. The dolphin, who knew now where he was, began to rise to the surface. A few hours later he had reached the place Tertio had spoken about. "Here we are at last!" he cried. "Here!" "Why, where is the ship?" "There," answered Marcevino, pointing to a great black mass which showed through the water. "That! Why, look how it is trimmed!" And he was indeed right. The inhabitants of the sea had taken possession of everything. The keel of the ship was overgrown with beautiful, slender seaweeds. The decks were covered with sponges. The stairs had disappeared under the work of polyps. On the lookout bridge, hundreds of anemones raised their brightly colored corollas. The needles of sea urchins threatened passers-by from the portholes. Silvery fishes and starfishes were seen all over. Everything was living on the dead ship. "Now let us hasten," said Marcevino.
"Very well,"
answered Pinocchio. "We have been so long in coming that now we must be quick," continued the dolphin. "Father must be worried. Let us look for the treasure, and then we can begin our return journey tonight." "Very well. again assented Pinocchio. Make haste, then. Get into that ship. Don't lose any more time. Come, let us go. Let us go. How can I go? Don't you see how small the doors are? You must go alone. Pinocchio did not like the idea. He stood still and thought. His courage utterly failed him. To go alone into that great black ship. Why, how could he do such a thing? Well, what are you thinking of? Asked Marcevino, who had dropped Pinocchio at the door of the stairs. I haven't made up my mind yet. I don't like the idea of going in there very much. But you must. I can't go, and we must have the gold. Will you decide? I thought you had offered to help Mr. Tercio. When he heard that, Pinocchio finally made up his mind. He opened the door and went down a few steps. Then he stopped. Must I really go? He asked. Marcevino began to lose his patience. If you do not make haste getting into that ship, I shall return without you, he could not help saying. I shall return without you, he could not help saying. Very well, here I go. You remember Tertio's instructions, don't you? At the bottom of the stairs there is a large room. At one end a door leads into the captain's room. In a corner of the captain's room you will find 2 boxes. They contain the treasure. Goodbye and good luck. Very slowly Pinocchio went down. Luckily for him, a few sunfishes were floating around, giving some light. When he reached the bottom of the stairs, he saw in front of him a large square room. In the walls were long, narrow holes, like the shelves of a pantry. These had probably been the sailors' bunks. But to Pinocchio they were puzzles. The roof, which was very high, was of glass. This made the room lighter than the stairs, and so Pinocchio took courage. At one end of the room there was a small, narrow door. Pinocchio walked to it and tried to open it. Still, though the door was not locked, it would not open. It seemed as if someone were holding it closed from the inside. The marionette pushed it, kicked it, struggled with it, and finally he succeeded in opening it. He was able to put just the tip of his nose in the crack. He had no sooner done this, though, than it was held as in a vice. Pinocchio felt something pulling and pulling. My nose will surely come off, he thought, but after trying and trying, he was at last free again. I wonder what that was. What can be behind that door? In any case, it may be better to have some weapon of defense. And thinking this, Pinocchio looked around. Those shelves may hold something useful. But when he came near them, what did he see? A mattress, pillows, sheets. What could this have been? A hospital? Poor Pinocchio. He was most certainly a dunce. On the floor in a corner he found a pair of large boots. These will do, he thought. Again he pushed the door. This time he was able to open it wide. As soon as he had done so, he threw a large boot in blindly. Had he never done so, it would have been better. In a second the room became as black as pitch. "Marcevino! Oh, 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 Marcevino!" screamed the poor boy, thinking himself blinded. The dolphin, waiting for Pinocchio at the head of the stairs, became frightened at this appeal. He thought something serious had happened. He swam to the top of the deck and broke several panes of glass. Looking into the room, he called, "What is the matter? I am here." Pinocchio felt a little better when he saw Marcevino. "Oh, Marcevino!" he cried. "What has happened, my poor Pinocchio? I have found a bottle of ink." "A bottle of what?" "Of ink. I threw a boot at something, and now the room is full of ink. Oh, now I understand. You have to deal with an octopus. What's that? A mollusk. Oh, if that's what it is, I'm not afraid. I know them well. Yes, but not this one. This is the greatest mollusk known. It is a near relation of the calamari, but much larger. There are some even 5 or 6 yards long." "Oh!" shivered Pinocchio, looking around. "The one in the captain's room must be a small one, though. If I were with you, I should free you in a second. There is nothing a dolphin likes better than an octopus or a calamari. But the ink? The ink is the means of defense of these mollusks. When pursued or in danger, this animal ejects this inky liquid. In that way, it forms a cloud in the water and is able to escape. Shall I be killed? If you keep out of reach of its long arms, you will be all right. Oh, now I see what got hold of my poor nose. It is aching yet. Now tell me, Marcevino, if this animal is guarding the treasure, how shall I possibly get at it? We might as well give it up. And Pinocchio started towards the stairs. How very courageous you are! After trying so hard, are you going to give up at the last minute? Pinocchio did not answer, but very slowly he retraced his steps. Going over to the bunks, he took a large mattress. Holding it in front of him, he moved toward the door, which was still ajar. The water from the captain's room had mixed with the water of the large room, and now it was not so dark. Very cautiously the marionette peeked over the mattress. In a corner of the room lay the pulpe, or octopus. As Marcevino had said, it was not very large. Still, it was very ugly. Think of a large head, soft and jelly-like, with two great eyes staring at you. Think of that head and 8 long, thick arms around it. No wonder Pinocchio felt like turning back. The monster moved restlessly about, stretching and twisting its arms. In one of them it held Pinocchio's boot. Every minute its huge body changed color. At first it was white, then gray, then brown, then spotted with purple. Pinocchio hardly knew what to think of it. "You are certainly very ugly, my dear bottle of ink," he thought. "Well, why am I standing here? I might as well try to kill him. Hurrah! Here comes the brave marionette." Very slowly Pinocchio walked up to the octopus, but not near enough to be in reach of those arms. Then with a quick move he threw the mattress over the struggling mass. Pressing it down tightly, he held it there. For a long time the arms twitched nervously about, but at last they stopped moving. The boy waited a few minutes longer, and then, thinking the creature dead, he stood up. The mattress, however, he left on top of the pulpe. Not only that, but running back, he took another and put it on top of the first. He wanted to be sure the octopus would not move. At last he breathed easily and set to work to get the boxes. Yes, think of it! That lazy marionette really set to work. He dragged the boxes one after the other into the large room, and then he called Marcevino. "Here is the treasure, Marcevino. Now how am I to carry these heavy boxes upstairs?" Marcevino then lowered a stout rope which he had carried with him. Pinocchio tied the boxes to it, one after the other, and the dolphin pulled them up. "Throw the rope down again, Marcevino. What for? Are there 3 treasure boxes? You will see." As soon as the end of the rope touched the floor of the room, Pinocchio tied it around his waist. "Now pull!" he called. Marcevino pulled, and in a second Pinocchio stood on the bridge. "I really had no wish to return by those dark, dusty stairs," he laughed, seeing Marcevino's look of wonder. Chapter 15. At last the two had done their duty. The treasure was theirs. All that remained now was to go back to Tercio with it. "Let us start this minute," said Marcevino, who was anxious to see his father again. "Yes, but first, please give me something to eat." "Should you like to have some grapes?" said Marcevino kindly. "I don't see the use of making my mouth water needlessly," answered Pinocchio. "But I mean what I'm saying. Should you like some grapes? Show them to me first, then I'll answer you." "Come here, then, unbeliever." As he spoke, Marcevino led Pinocchio to a mast, which, strange to say, had not been touched by the polyps. Hanging from a slender thread was a bunch of what looked like red grapes. "What are they?" Pinocchio could only ask. "Don't you see? They are sea grapes." "Eat them. But first I want you to tell me what they are." "They are the eggs of the calamary, a near relation of the octopus you had to deal with today." "Very well, then. I'm willing to destroy all sign of those horrible beings." In a short time Pinocchio had made a good luncheon out of them. Luncheon finished, Marsavino gave Pinocchio the box of pearls which he was holding for the marionette. Then the dolphin tied the treasure boxes on his back, and the two friends were ready to start. They again passed the beach where the seals had had their battle. Now it was full of men. Some were skinning the poor animals, others were pressing out the oil from their bodies. Still others were spreading the skins out on the sand to dry. Again the two travelers came into the polar seas. Here they found a great change. Icebergs had melted, and the sea was full of floating ice. At last, without meeting any mishaps, the two again entered the warmer ocean. They had gone only a few miles when Pinocchio heard a great noise behind him. Both friends turned. On the calm surface of the sea rose two high columns of water. "The whale!" exclaimed Marsavino. "Nonsense, whale!" answered Pinocchio, who now and then still forgot how little he knew. "Don't you see it's a fountain? How could an animal send the water so high? Still, it is the whale. You are just seeing a cetacean breathe." "You are a cetacean too, but I see only one hole in your head, and the jet of water you throw is very low." "Yes, we are cetaceans, but we are not whales. The whale proper has two breathing holes." "Mercy, what a noise that monster does make!" breathed Pinocchio. "Now, if she comes near us, we'll disappear." "Have no fear, Pinocchio. The whale, although such a large animal, is quiet and harmless if you let her alone. She is even timid. And don't think that because her mouth is large she can eat large animals. Her mouth may be large, but her throat is so small that she can swallow only very small fishes. If we had met the cachalot or sperm whale, we should have reason to be frightened. And what is that? It's an immense cetacean. You can tell it from the common whale, not only by its one breathing hole, but also by its size. The head alone is enormous, and its mouth is frightful with its many large, sharp teeth." "Hasn't this whale teeth?" "No. But instead of teeth, its upper jaw is lined with at least 700 plates of a thick, horny substance. These plates are often 12 and 15 feet long. When the whale wants to eat, it opens its huge mouth and then closes it full of water. This water is then strained through the plates, and hundreds of small fishes are caught in them. The whale can then swallow her dinner at her leisure." "What a dinner!" exclaimed Pinocchio. "Now tell me this. Why is it that so many whales are captured by whalers? You say that they are harmless. Why, then, should they be killed?" "They are caught because of their value. Those horny plates I spoke of are what is called whalebone. The large tongue of the whale contains many barrels of oil. From the body of the whale, great quantities of fat may be had. All these things are of great use in the world." "What about that other whale you spoke of?" "The one with the terrible teeth. The sperm whale. Oh, that one is a dreadful being. With its great mouth and sharp teeth it can eat anything. Seals, dolphins, and even the terrible squaloids are lost if they come near him. He is very ferocious." While Marsavino and Pinocchio were talking, the whale had come nearer. The marionette saw a small, dark object climb on her back. "What is that?" he asked. "That's a baby whale." Whales are very affectionate mothers. The baby whale is tired, so the mother is going to carry it. Suddenly a dark head and body rose out of the water. Like an arrow it threw itself on the poor whale. With its large mouth it tore a great piece of flesh from the cetacean's side and then disappeared into the waves. "Mercy!" "The sea-wolf!" cried Marsavino, looking around for some place to hide. "What is the sea-wolf? The name does not sound terrible. It is the most dangerous and fierce squaloid. It is even worse than the hammer." "Let us run," said Marsavino breathlessly. "But if we run, the wolf will run after us." "You're right. Where shall we hide?" "Oh, here. Let us try to get among these weeds." Near them was a large plant. Its leaves would make a very safe hiding place. Pinocchio stood on Marcevino's back and pushed the leaves aside. In a short time the two were so well hidden that no eyes could see them. "Here we are safe," and the dolphin gave a sigh of relief. "And how well we can see." Pinocchio, like the boy he was, wanted to see the fight. In fact, a short distance away a terrific fight was in progress. The wolf had now attacked the baby whale. This made the mother furious. She tried to hit the shark with her tail, but he was too quick for her. The poor cetacean was getting the worst of it. The wolf's mouth, provided with 400 sharp teeth, was tearing the whale's side to pieces. Blood was pouring from them both, and it seemed as if the whale could not hold out much longer. A second dark body now made its appearance. It was as long as the whale, but much larger. Its head was enormous, and from the top of it rose a single high column of water. The sperm whale. "The cachalot," breathed Marcevino, and it seemed to Pinocchio that the dolphin turned pale. It was not to be mistaken. It was the terrible whale. And he seemed not at all frightened by the sight of the fighters, instead opening wide his mouth. And such a mouth! He threw himself on them. With a snap of the great jaws, the sea-wolf's tail disappeared. And then, as if the battle were not fierce enough, a long blade-like object appeared on the scene. The sides of the blade were provided with sharp teeth. Behind the blade was a dark head. The new arrival was the sawfish, coming to see what the matter was. Without much ado, it started to deal blows, first on this side, then on that. Not even the sperm whale escaped the terrible saw. Long, ragged tears were soon seen on its body. Cries of pain were heard on all sides. The sea was a sea of blood. Finally, the whale, seeing that she was lost if she stayed there long, tried to escape. As swiftly as she could, she swam away with her baby. Though the whale was gone, the fight still raged. The wolf and the saw, although both of the same family, are sworn enemies. Not paying much attention to the sperm whale, they started to battle with each other. But the wolf was so exhausted by the loss of blood that it could not do much. The cachalot, seeing himself overlooked, threw himself on the sawfish. But as quick as a flash, the sawfish dived and came up on the other side of the giant. Angrier than ever, the whale now turned to the wolf, and in an instant snapped his head off. The whale was satisfied. Pouring blood from 20 wounds, he left the field of battle. The sawfish was left alone in all his glory. He was hurt but little. Very calmly he started to make a dinner of the sea-wolf, or at least of what was left of him. The dolphin now thought it safe to try to escape. Once out of the weeds, he fled as fast as he could. Poor Pinocchio could only sit still and look around. He feared any minute to see a hammerhead or a wolf or a whale appear before him. "Oh, how horrible, how awful is the sea!" he thought. Chapter 16. After racing along madly for a while, Marcevino became so tired that he had to stop. "I must rest," he said to Pinocchio. "Very well, I'm willing," answered the marionette. In front of them, the two friends could see a dark mass. Seen from the sea, it looked like a strip of land, but on approaching, one could see that it was nothing but a high rock. This strip was separated from the shore of a small island by a long, narrow channel of water. Marcevino swam a few yards up the channel and then stopped to let Pinocchio jump on land. "That battle in the sea has upset me greatly," said Pinocchio to his friend. "I must strengthen myself with some food, but I don't see anything around." "What shall I eat?" The last words were interrupted by a soft whistle from the channel. A second whistle was heard, then a third, then a fourth. Our two friends turned. Large, clumsy, black bodies were coming out of the water. They were trying very hard to get to shore. Pinocchio knew them at once. They were sea tortoises, and it was they who had made those strange sounds. After dragging themselves to the shore, they stood on the sand, moving their heads and blinking up at the sun. "You said you wanted something to eat, Pinocchio." "Well, do you see those large holes on the sand there? Look in them. You will surely find some tortoise eggs in them. They will make a delicious dinner for you." Pinocchio did not have to be told twice. In a moment he was gone. In a short time he returned with 2 large eggs in his hands. "Make haste now, eat them. We must continue our journey, and we have no time to lose. You are going to wait, my dear Marsovino. I really do not see why you should be in such a hurry. Because father told me never to stop needlessly, that's why. Yes, I know, but you shall wait now. Since I have been with you, I have eaten nothing but raw fish. Fish and mollusks, mollusks and fish, and I'm getting tired of it. Today I am going to eat boiled eggs." "Boiled eggs? How, pray, and in what are you going to boil them?" "Ha, ha! That's my secret. That day in the ship I found an iron box with the word matches written on it. I kept it, but I never opened it. Here it is." And Pinocchio showed the dolphin a small black box firmly closed. "Now I'm going to use the matches. Do you want to see me build a fire and cook my eggs?" "Very well, have your own way. But make haste, you disobedient boy." In no time Pinocchio had a good fire started. "Now in what shall I put the water to boil?" he thought. He looked around, and not very far away he saw a huge empty tortoise shell. "Marsovino," he called, "come here. Will you please blow on this fire for me? I don't want it to go out, and I want to get that tortoise shell in some water." "But I can't move out of the water," answered Marsovino. "Oh, yes, you can. Come. Drag yourself as near as possible to the water. You amphibians can live out of the water for a while." "So make haste. But Mr. Tercio told me never to leave the water." "Well, just for once." Marsovino finally gave in. There was no great harm in just one little disobedience, he thought. Pinocchio hastened away, and soon he was back with the shell full of fresh water. "Oh, how good that spring water was," he said to his friend, who was busily blowing the fire. "Now for a good dinner." The eggs were soon cooked, and Pinocchio certainly enjoyed them. "I feel so well after that dinner I could travel to the end of the world," he said when he had finished. The 2 travelers then turned toward the sea, but Marsovino gave a cry of horror. In the channel hardly any water was left. The pebbly bottom could be seen, and beyond that the steep rock. "The tide!" cried Marsovino. "I forgot the tide. Poor me, I am lost. What is the matter?" "Don't you see the water is gone? The tide is gone out, and now how am I to get back to the sea? Before the tide comes in again I shall be dead. Oh, oh, I shall never see dear father again." And as he talked, poor Marsovino was beginning to breathe with difficulty and to suffer greatly. Pinocchio understood little about tides, but he knew what Marsovino meant by dying. "And it is all my fault," he cried, pulling at his hair. "If he dies, poor me, what shall happen to me? I must find some way of saving him." Marsovino was now giving little sign of life. He lay on the sand with eyes closed and breathing heavily. With 2 bounds, Pinocchio was on top of the rocky ledge. Before him was the sea. If only it were possible to break a hole in this rock, he thought. As if in answer, a strange object made its appearance in front of him. It was a white spiral pole about 2 yards long. Behind the pole, Pinocchio saw a round gray head spotted with black. Against the rocks the animal came with such force that they trembled. Suddenly an idea struck our hero. "Pardon me," he called, "but will you allow me to speak with you a moment?" The immense animal, about 6 yards long, looked the boy over. "What do you want, you small piece of humanity?" he asked proudly. Pinocchio very humbly and very quickly told him the story of the poor dolphin. "And as it is my fault that he is in this condition, I want to try to save him," he exclaimed. "You seem so strong. Will you please give this rock a few knocks with that tooth of yours? I know you'll be able to break it." At this earnest supplication the narwhal, for that is what the animal was highly pleased. He looked at Pinocchio in a tolerant way. "First of all," he answered, "before I do anything for you, let me ask you a question." "Yes, sir, but please make haste, or Marcevino will die." "Do not interrupt me again, boy. First of all, what are you willing to give me in return for this favor?" "I have nothing, sir." "I would give you anything I have. I wish I had something, but I have nothing. I do nothing for nothing." "Goodbye, then," the narwhal replied. "But answer me this. What have you in that box in your hands, that box you are trying to hide?" "This box? Oh, do not ask me for this. This will make my father rich and happy. Oh, no, not this. It is full of beautiful pearls." "Pearls? Well, then, give them to me. For them and for them only shall I grant your request." "No?" he asked as Pinocchio shook his head. "Very well, then. Goodbye. Come back." "Come back!" cried Pinocchio. "Only hasten to save Marcevino." Without a word more, he handed his precious pearls to the narwhal, and then, quick as a flash, was back at Marcevino's side. "Marcevino! Marcevino! Open your eyes, dear friend. You are saved." He had not finished speaking when, with a crash, a great piece of rock fell. Another crash, and the hole widened. Another, and the hole was wide enough for Marcevino to pass through. The water from the sea flowed in. Marcevino opened his eyes at the great noise. He was so surprised that he felt almost entirely well. "What is it?" he asked feebly. "Come, Marcevino, come." "Try to drag yourself this short space, and you'll be in the water again. Come." Pinocchio helped him all he could. He lifted the heavy treasure boxes off the poor dolphin's back. He smoothed the sand. He cleared away the stones. Still, poor Marcevino's body was all torn and bleeding before the short trip was finished. Finally, with a great sigh of relief, Marcevino was again in the cool water. Pinocchio was as happy as a boy can be. When he saw Marcevino safely in the water again, he ran back to get the boxes. He dragged and pulled, and at last he had them both on Marcevino's back again. "It was lucky he didn't know anything about these otherwise," said Pinocchio to himself. "He? Whom are you talking about?" asked Marcevino, who was now well again. "Yes, he, the one who helped me save you. He had a long white tooth, and he made a hole in the rock with it." "A narwhal? You must be talking about a narwhal. Do you mean to tell me that you asked a narwhal to help you, and that he did?" "I suppose so. But how did you ever get him to do it? That's my secret. Now that you are rested, let us go home to Tertio." "Very well. But still I should like to know why that narwhal was so very obliging." With a laugh, Pinocchio jumped on the dolphin's back, and they were off. Without stopping anywhere, the two friends traveled straight to the coral island, and as soon as they reached it, they turned straight to the place where Beluga lived. They found everyone healthy and happy and overjoyed to see them. Tertio asked Pinocchio to tell him all his adventures, and the boy was only too happy to please him. He told of the seals, of the old ship, of the meeting with the octopus, of the battle on the high seas. But of his last adventure and of the loss of his pearls he said never a word. And then, "Is that all?" asked Tertio. "Yes, what else should there be? You had a very pleasant voyage then, after all. Yes, a splendid voyage. With no very unpleasant adventures?" "No, none. Well, yes, one, but it has been forgotten long ago." Pinocchio was beginning to learn the value of truth. "And what was that?" "But it has been forgotten." "I want to know about it," said Tertio in a voice that had to be obeyed. "Very well," and Pinocchio told him. "And if it had not been for a kind narwhal passing by just then, Marcevino would now be dead," he finished. "A kind narwhal." "What did he do?" "I asked him to help me, and he did. But what did you give him in return for his kindness?" "A narwhal is not kind for nothing. I just gave him something, that's all. Pinocchio finally told him. "Well done, my boy. You were certainly courageous, and you deserve to be forgiven for your disobedience. And remember, Pinocchio, you shall be rewarded for your act of kindness." The next day the four friends traveled far, and by sunset they came to a strange land. "Well, goodbye, my boy," said Tercio, turning to Pinocchio. "Our journey is finished. I hope you have learned something. You must go back to the world now. Are you going to leave me here alone?" "You shall not be alone very long. Do not be afraid. Walk a short distance inland. You'll come to a little house. There you will find someone waiting for you."
"My father!" cried Pinocchio, overjoyed. "At last! Hurrah!"
The marionette then thanked his kind friends and jumped on land. The dolphins shook their fins in goodbye and then swam away. "Goodbye, Tercio! Goodbye, Marsovino! Goodbye, Globicephalus!" screamed Pinocchio, watching the sea until the three had disappeared. "Well, now for my father." And turning toward the land, he started to run. All happened as Tercio had told him. Not only did he find his father, but he also found a beautiful little home and a comfortable, happy life waiting for him. He remembered then Tercio's words, "You will be rewarded." The following pages contain advertisements of Macmillan books for boys and girls. New Stories for Boys, Deering of Deal by Latta Griswold, with illustrations by George C. Harper. Cloth, 12 mo, 125 net. This is the kind of a story which keeps boys up late at night to finish. Tony Deering, the hero, is just good enough and just bad enough to appeal to every lad from 12 to 20, and to make some of the lads' fathers brighten up a bit, too. Tony goes to Deal School. The reader meets him upon his entrance to the first form, and he follows him for 3 or 4 years through hazing episodes, football games and other school contests, debates and secret organization fights, forbidden spreads and temporary disgraces, to his graduation as one of the most popular fellows the school has ever produced. Don't Give Up the Ship by C.S. Wood, frontispiece in colors and half-tone plates by Frank Merrill, decorated cloth 12 mo 125 net. With Perry's famous victory on Lake Erie as the center of interest, Mr. Wood has written a stirring story of the War of 1812. Beginning just before the outbreak of hostilities, he follows the career of a vigorous young fellow who attaches himself to Perry and renders no little service to the government in the campaign. Incidentally, a splendid pen picture of the commander of the lakes is given. The book is one which should strike home to the hearts of the American youth today, 100 years after the events so vividly described. The Macmillan Company, 6466 Fifth Avenue, New York. New Stories for Girls. Peggy Stewart at Home by Gabriel E. Jackson. New edition with frontispiece. Cloth, 12 mo, 1.25 net. An interesting companion story to Mrs. Jackson's Peggy Stewart at School is this new edition, with frontispiece, of a book published last year under the title of Peggy Stewart. Those who read the later chronicles of Peggy will most certainly want to see their adorable heroine at Severnedale, the broad green fields of which the reader catches but few glimpses of in Peggy Stewart at School. Though the content of the tale is of necessity far different from its sequel, there is in Peggy Stewart at Home a fascinating wealth of adventure and a circle of young people quite as pleasing as those who flutter around Peggy away from home. Moreover, while a reading of Peggy Stewart at Home isn't necessary to an understanding of Peggy Stewart at School, it will be found a distinctly pleasant introduction to it. Peggy Stewart at School by Gabriel E. Jackson, author of Peggy Stewart at Home, with decorated cloth 12 mo, 125 net. In this book, Peggy leaves the broad expanses of Severnedale, the estate which has been her home all her life, and goes away to Columbia Heights boarding school. Of course, Polly goes with her, for any chronicle of Peggy would be incomplete without her companion. The new friends which the two girls make, the pranks which they indulge in, and more. The good times which Polly's lively aunt, Mrs. Harold, gives them, comprise a book which is fully as interesting and perhaps even more entertaining than Peggy Stewart at home, which is saying a good deal. As in that former book, a not inconsiderable part of the interest was supplied by Peggy's animal friends, so in this, Shashai and Star, the horses which Peggy and Polly bring with them to the school, and Zaritza, Peggy's dog, play parts of some importance in the development of the plot. The Macmillan Company Publishers, 6466 Fifth Avenue, New York. The Secret of the Clan. A Story for Girls by Alice Brown. Illustrated, cloth, 12 mo, 125 net. Imagine 4 girls of 15 or thereabouts, a delightful grandmother with whom they live and who believes that young people should have some secrets and do things their own way, a governess who knows how to dance and how to get up amateur plays, an uncle who wants to appear gruff but in reality loves the imps, as he calls his nieces, and you have the fundamentals out of which Miss Brown's wholly absorbing story is built. The secret which the girls have, and to which, following the custom of their improvised Indian tribe, they do not admit their grandmother, is the cause of all the trouble, and it threatens to be serious trouble for a time. But it comes out happily in the end for everyone concerned, particularly for Uncle Terry and the governess. Alice Brown has written a decidedly original story of girl life in The Secret of the Clan. For it is perhaps the first time that anyone has recognized that side of healthy girl character which delights in making believe on a large scale. It is a bright story, delightfully told. Chicago News. A story with unfailing vivacity and much literary charm. Pittsburgh Post. The author shows an unfailing understanding of the heart of girlhood. Christian Advocate. Alice Brown has endeared herself to every girl of high school age by many a charming little story of girl life and friendships. But The Secret of the Clan, her new book, comes pretty near to being the best ever. Boston Globe. One of the best stories for girls we have seen for years. Outlook. The Macmillan Company. Publishers, 6466 Fifth Avenue, New York. Every Boys and Every Girls series. Decorated cloth, 12 mo, illustrated, each 75 cents. Adventures of Dorothy by Jocelyn Lewis. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Aunt Jimmy's Will by Mabel Osgood Wright. Bears of Blue River by Charles Major. Bennett Twins by G.M. Hurd. Bible Stories Retold by W.F. Adonai and W.H. Bennett. W. Boy Life on the Prairie. W. by Hamlin Garland. W. by Hamlin Garland. Carrots. Children of the Tenements. Is by Jacob Rias. Children Who Ran Away by E. Sharp. Duck O'Clock. Dogtown. 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 D. Dwarf's Spectacles. By Max Nordau. 8 Secrets by Ernest Ingersoll. General Manager's Story. By H. E. Hamblin. Little Captive Lad. By Beulah Marie Dix. Little Lame Prince. by Dinah Mulock Craik. Marianne the Poor by Samuel Merwin. Marylips by Beulah Marie Dix. Phoenix and the Carpet. The Poor by E. Nesbit. Pickett's Gap by Homer Green. By E. Nesbit. Story of a Red Deer. By J. W. Fortescue. Tales of the Fish Patrol. By Jack London. Through the Looking Glass. By Lewis Carroll. Tom Benton's Luck by H. E. Hamblin. Tom Brown's School Days. By Thomas Hughes. Trapper Jim. C by Edwin Sandys. Nos. Tar by Mrs. Molesworth. Wonder Children, by Charles Bellamy. Youngest Girl in the School, by E. Sharp. The Macmillan Company, 6466 Fifth Avenue, New York. Peeps at Many Lands, travel books which aim to describe foreign places with special reference to the interests of young readers. They deal with children's life in home and school, their games and occupations, etc.